In this video, I'm going to go ahead and give you a quick rundown on how to use Eclipse as an alternative to BlueJ. Now, if you go in Chrome and do a quick search on Eclipse for Java, you will see there are lots and lots of options. First of all, there's different versions of Eclipse for different languages, and we obviously want to pick the one for Java. And the current version that I'm using is Eclipse Oxygen, which is a new release that came out in June of 17. So you can use any of the versions of Eclipse. You don't have to use this one. This just happens to be the one that I'm using in this tutorial. Now, you can go ahead and download this. I'm not going to go through all of those steps here. And if you have trouble downloading Eclipse, there are tutorials on downloading it. Right now, I'm just going to give you a quick workaround or walk through about how this software works. So if we open up the program, everything's going to go ahead and load. The first thing you'll get prompted for is a directory to save as a workspace. Now, I have mine set to save on my computer. If you were at school using this, you'd want to set this on your H drive, or even possibly your SD card, or rather your flash drive. I've been told that when you try and save to a workspace that is actually your Google Drive for desktop folder, that Eclipse does not like that. So for that reason, I'm going to go ahead and just stick with the C drive, and then I will just periodically transfer my files over to Google Drive for a backup. Okay, so once we have this set up, we're going to go ahead and click Launch, and then wait for this to populate and open up. Okay, so when we open up our Eclipse, you'll see in BlueJ, there's a lot more options, and for all of these icons, if you hover over them, it'll tell you what they do. You may not fully understand all of the options. However, as you get more comfortable with Eclipse, you can go through those and figure out what things do just by reading what their options are. Okay, so first things first, we want to create a new package. So we're going to click over here on this icon on the top left where we see the white plus sign, or yellow plus sign, and we're going to say New Java Project. And a project is a folder that can contain multiple packages. Now, a package is kind of like a folder within the project. So I'm going to create a project for our current unit, Unit 3. And Unit 3 is all on classes, so that's what I'm going to name this project name. And then in terms of the location of where it's being saved, this is the default location that I established when I opened Eclipse, and then the rest of the options should be fine. So I'm going to say Finish. And then we'll see this over here. Now, as you click on these arrows, different things open up for us. We're going to see a whole bunch of Java stuff here. We don't really need to worry ourselves with that, so let's collapse that up. This source folder is where we will contain the .java files that we are working with. Okay. For your purposes, you might only have this one main folder and then all of your files inside source. You can also create, if we click on the new sign again, a package, and a package is like a folder within a folder that you can use to clump code together. So for example, you might have a package for class examples. You might have a package for your unit lab. As our labs become more evolved, we'll start having 3, 4, 5, 6 Java files with just one lab project that we will turn in at the end of the unit. So that's one way that you can further organize your code so that they're not all just mixed into one folder. Okay, so let's say I wanted to take a file that was in my, maybe in the extras drive, and we wanted to take this file and drag it over. We could go ahead and we could take a file and just drag and drop it into this source folder. I'm going to choose Copy Files. All right, and what will happen here is we will get an error apparently. Okay, so you'll notice this little exclamation point here is telling us that there's something wrong with our program. So at further inspection, you can follow here to where we see the little exclamation point, and if you hover over it, we get the error that says that scan is never closed, and this is something that we haven't talked about yet. When we open an input stream, it's best practice to go ahead and close the input stream. So if I go ahead and just say scan.close, notice a couple of things. First of all, notice that that Eclipse has autocomplete. So we see the method that pops up, and these are methods that are available to the scan to the scanner class. And since scan is an object of the scanner class, these are the methods that it has available to it. And it's basically pulling up all of the methods that have a CL in them. And then as I'm hovering over this method, over here I can see the documentation for it, which is really powerful that Eclipse has that BlueJ doesn't have for us. So I can go ahead and close this, and then as I rerun it, I will notice that these exclamation points go away. Okay, so you're probably wondering, well, how do I run this code? Well, another thing that's nice about Eclipse is you can just click on this green play button up here, and this will run the code for me. And then down here in the bottom window, I will see the scanner console will be my output window right here. So I'm going to hit play. And then notice that Eclipse automatically clears the screen. Even though nowhere in here did I say clear the screen, it automatically clears the screen. So in this program, this was just checking for which letter grade we earned. So let's say I say 95. It'll tell me, great job, I earned an A. Now, if I were to have the \F here, because many of our programs do from when we were working in BlueJ, if I rerun it, it'll still work. But notice this little funky X or question mark icon that appears. And that's just because Eclipse doesn't really know what to do with that \F. Again, not quite sure why it does that. We're not going to worry about it. I just wanted to make you aware of that. Okay, so let's say I put in a different grade. I get a different output window. Okay, now notice the different tabs up here. This is for the different files, similar to what we saw in BlueJ. I can toggle between them. And this right here is just another example of our code. You'll notice the color coding is a little bit different than what we saw in BlueJ. We still use the same thing with our comments, multi-line documentation, and so forth. Okay. Now, as I mentioned, you can create other packages. So let's say I wanted to create a package for first, second, and third period. I would go up here and I would say package, new package. And then it's asking me where I want to put it. So I want it to be within my Unit 3 folder. I want it to be within my source code. Now here I could just say period 1. And so now this will allow me to keep my code separate from my different classes. A way that you might use this, like I mentioned, is to have a different folder for each of your things, examples, your lab, etc. Okay, the next thing I'm going to show you is how to use our debugger tool. Now, we haven't used our debugger yet in BlueJ, so this will be a little bit different for us, but I want to go ahead and show you how that works. Okay, what we see here is our bank account driver program. Now, we're going to get more into debugging later in class, and we will go through this in class. But I just want to point out a few things for those of you that have used debuggers before, just to let you know how they work. So up here in the top right, we'll see this little bug icon, which is a good picture for debugging, and then the little J here for Java. So right now we are in the Java window. If we click on the little bug, this will bring up our debugging window. And this is where we can see some different areas. We'll get to see variable values, we can set breakpoints, we have our console, we'll see different menus on or different options on our debugging, and the more that we use this, the more comfortable you will get within the screen. Now, a breakpoint is basically a spot to make your program pause. So you'll see right here, for example, I created a breakpoint. Now I can click toggle breakpoint to make it go away. I can click toggle breakpoint to make it appear. And a breakpoint basically forces your program to pause at that point. Now, we have a couple different options within our debugging menu. Let's see. So there's these different features which right now are not grayed out, but there's step into, step over, step return, and these are different features that we will use to progress through the program using those breakpoints. And so we'll learn more about this in class. I just wanted to mention it now. And we can toggle back to Java by clicking the J to get back into our program window. All right, so that's a good, just quick tutorial on Eclipse. And like I said, you're welcome to continue using BlueJ. I just know a few students have asked about Eclipse, and it definitely has a much more professional feel. And for those of you that are more advanced in your programming, I wanted you to have an idea of how to use this. This is available on our lab computer, so you can use this at school. You can also download it at home. All right, that's all.